The message dropped in our family group chat, like a bomb wrapped in politeness. Mom had written it with her usual perfect grammar and that trademark undertone of guilt. Emergency family meeting. Thursday at 7 p.m. Alexander needs our help with her situation. Yep, the situation. That's what they'd labeled my decision to walk away from a fancy consulting gig and chase my own business dreams. For 2 years, I'd been dodging side comments, fielding anxious check-ins, and picking up on all the little not-so-subtle nudges about getting a real job. You know, with a 401k and a dress code. I sat there, parked in front of my parents' house, same colonial home I grew up in, where success was measured by alma maters and job titles. Patricia's shiny white Range Rover was nestled right between Dad's polished Mercedes and Mom's spotless BMW. My beat-up Toyota Corolla stuck out like a sore thumb. Felt about right. My phone lit up with a buzz. Michael, my right-hand man and CFO, had sent a message. Forbes article drops at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You ready for this? I shot back. Couldn't be better. Family ambush starts at 7. He replied instantly. Savage. Want me to dispatch a getaway car? Nah. Some reveals are worth the wait. I took a quick look at myself in the mirror. No designer outfit tonight. Just a black blazer, plain white shirt, minimal makeup, hair pulled back tight. Let them assume I couldn't afford more. That'd make what came next all the more satisfying. Before I even made it to the door, it swung open. Mom stood there in her Chanel suit, makeup perfect, though the tight lines on her face gave away the tension. Alexander, sweetheart, you're late. By all of 2 minutes, Mom. In business, timing is everything, dear. She gave me the kind of look that doubles as a life lesson. Something to think about. The living room was set up like a board meeting disguised as a family reunion. Dad had staked his claim near the fireplace, classic power move. Elizabeth and her husband Richard were perched on the leather couch. Aunt Elizabeth was holding court in the wingback chair. They'd even brought in backup. Ally. Elizabeth gave me an air kiss, eyes flicking down to my outfit. Cute blazer. H&M. Thrift shop, actually. I caught the flicker of horror she tried to hide. Eco-conscious fashion. It's kind of a thing now. Dad cleared his throat, signaling it was time to get down to business. Let's begin. We're all here because we're concerned about you, Elizabeth. My situation, you mean? I picked the most uncomfortable chair and made sure to sit facing the whole group. It's your choices we're concerned about, Mom corrected, already in full spin mode. 2 years ago, you had it made. A fast track to partner at McKinsey. That beautiful penthouse. Joseph. Ah yes, Joseph. The guy they practically sent out wedding invites for before I pulled the plug and chose to build something real. And now Dad waved his hand like he couldn't quite wrap his head around it. You're in some cramped apartment, driving an old car, working on, remind me what it's called? Tech startup, Richard said. Ever the helpful one. Though, startup kind of assumes it's going somewhere. He grinned, too confident for his own good. I checked out the space you're in. It's overrun. No real room left unless you've got major investors. I smiled. The kind of smile that says you really have no clue. Richard, the same guy who'd tanked 3 of his own startups before giving up and leaning on his trust fund. The same guy who didn't know he'd recently pitched one of my firms and got turned down. We're just looking out for you, Elizabeth said, the voice of family concern. There's no shame in admitting something's not working. Mackenzie would welcome you back in a heartbeat. Actually, Aunt Elizabeth piped up, Jessica's daughter just made partner there. Youngest female partner ever. She let that hang in the air like a mic drop. That could have been you, you know. I glanced at my watch. 7:43 p.m. Just 17 minutes to go. You still haven't told us what this company of yours even does, Mom said, clearly exasperated. All this secrecy, all these late nights, and for what? Dad stood, channeling his executive presence like he was back in the boardroom. We need to face facts. Your venture is failing. It's time to make a plan for what's next. Patricia's phone dinged. She glanced at it, then did a hard double take. The poise cracked. Oh my God, she breathed. Then louder, "Why is your face on Forbes 30 under 30? Silence hit the room like a brick. Mom froze mid-sip, her wine glass suspended in the air. Richard lunged for Patricia's phone. This can't be right. He scrolled like a man on a mission. Alexander Bullitt, 28, founder and CEO of New Rock Solutions? Valued at this has to be wrong. $2 billion, I said, cool as ice. That was our last funding round's valuation. Though, honestly, it's already outdated. Dad slumped back in his chair, like someone had pulled the rug out from under him. $2 billion. Would you like to know what my company actually does now? I pulled out my tablet and fired up the investor pitch deck. New Rock Solutions builds AI-driven adaptive learning systems. Basically, we're changing how machines interpret and act on complex data. Oh, and that tiny apartment? It's actually the smallest unit in a building I bought. The Corolla? I chose it. It's dependable and smart, just like my investments. Mom's glass shook in her hand. But you never told us. You never asked. You were too busy mourning a life I didn't want. I stood, adjusting my thrifted blazer. Our tech's being used by some of the biggest names in the industry. That's why I've been working so hard. That's why I've kept it all quiet. And in about 2 minutes, Forbes is running a full piece on how a 28-year-old woman built a multi-billion-dollar AI company while her own family thought she was a failure. Patricia's phone wouldn't stop buzzing now. Notification after notification rolled in. Richard looked like he'd bitten into a lemon. Aunt Elizabeth? Already on the phone, probably updating Jessica. $2 billion, Dad repeated, barely above a whisper. I glanced at my phone as a new message popped up from Michael. Correction, I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. Make that 3. We just closed another acquisition. I'd fill you in on more, I said, grabbing my jacket, but I've got a video interview with CNBC in about an hour. They're running a segment on top disruptors in tech. The room went so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. Then Mom's voice broke the silence, barely above a whisper. But why didn't you tell us? I glanced around, taking in their stunned expressions, like someone had just pulled the rug out from under their tidy little world. Everything they thought they knew about me was unraveling. Because here's the thing, I replied, collecting my stuff, there's real power in being underestimated. You'd be surprised how far you can go when no one's paying attention. My phone buzzed again. That'll be my ride. Not the old Toyota this time. This one's actually worth something. Comes with the whole Forbes spread and everything. I walked toward the door but paused to toss one last truth bomb. Oh, and Patricia? That startup Richard pitched last month, the one Bullitt Ventures passed on? That's my firm. Better luck next time. Then I left them there, sitting pretty in their name brands and textbook definitions of success. Outside, a sleek black car was waiting to take me to the next chapter of my story. You know, sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't rubbing it in, it's letting people realize they never really had you figured out. And I was only getting started. That CNBC interview? Just the warm-up act. By midnight, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Old classmates suddenly remembered we were tight. Long-lost cousins swearing they always knew I'd make it big, and the best part? A flood of increasingly awkward texts from the fam. Mom, Elizabeth, please call us. We need to talk. Patricia, OMG, ally, why didn't you say anything? I'm your sister. Richard, about that startup pitch. Maybe we do lunch? Dad, I don't get it. You hit it big and didn't tell your own family? I left them all on read. My focus was on Michael's message. Stocks up 12% post-Forbes. Tokyo's opening strong. You ready for tomorrow's board? Next morning, I walked into Neurotech HQ, a tall glass tower smack in the middle of downtown, my name carved neatly into the cornerstone. The security guy gave me a nod of respect. Morning, Miss Bullitt. Nancy, my assistant, met me at the elevator. Your family's been calling nonstop since 6. Your mom even tried sweet-talking her way past reception. Security stuck to the rules. I couldn't help but grin. Of course they did. Anything else I should know? Patricia's blowing up LinkedIn. She posted about her genius sister in tech and tagged you. PR's wondering how you want to handle it. No need to respond. Let her enjoy the spotlight she missed. My office was perched on the top floor, nothing flashy from the outside. Just privacy glass and zero signage. Inside, it was all clean edges and purpose, functional furniture, whiteboards loaded with code, and algorithms crawling across every wall. Muted screens played the morning news. Tech star Elizabeth shakes up AI world. Neuroc Solutions quietly redefining machine learning. Billion-dollar empire built in the shadows. A knock on the door broke my train of thought. Miss Bullitt, your 9 a.m.'s here. I expected a VC from the calendar. Instead, in walked Joseph, my ex-fiancé. Still sharp in his suit, still trying that half-smile I used to fall for. My parents never forgave me for dumping him. Elizabeth, he said, flashing that old grin. You look successful. I look exactly the same as when you called my dreams of a startup cute and admirable. I didn't get up. So, how'd you end up on my schedule? He shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Your mom mentioned you had an office here. I figured, given our history. Given our history, I interrupted. You should know I don't take kindly to being underestimated. I never. You literally said, tech is a man's world, darling. Maybe stick with consulting, they like hiring women there. I hit the intercom. Nancy, can you escort Mr. Harrison out and update security protocols? As Joseph was shown the door, my actual 9 a.m. walked in Karen, the venture capital legend with a nose for unicorns. Rough morning, she asked, nodding toward the hallway. Just clearing out old baggage, I said, pulling up the deck. Ready to talk about the future? Our meeting went great, no surprise there. But the real fireworks were set for noon. My first board meeting since the Forbes bombshell dropped. When I stepped into that boardroom, it was packed. The same older guys who once questioned if I had the chops to lead now sat a little straighter when I walked in. Funny how a billion-dollar valuation can do that. Before we get rolling, I began, taking my seat at the head of the table. Let's call it like it is. I clicked to the next slide. Yes, the Forbes article was no accident. And yes, I dropped it when I did for a reason. But none of this changes how we run things around here. Michael pulled up our latest numbers. Those growth curves looked like mountain peaks, sharp, solid, and impossible to ignore. As you can see, I continued, stealth mode gave us the edge. While others were out there hyping vaporware we were building. And now? We're not part of the market. We are the market. One investor, the same guy who once suggested I hand over the CEO role to someone more seasoned, cleared his throat. The numbers are impressive, no doubt. But this publicity, your family. My family doesn't factor into this company's trajectory. I advance the slide. What matters is our next leap, Project Nexus. The room went quiet as I laid out our vision for the new AI framework, tech so advanced, everything we'd done so far would look like beta testing. Halfway through, Nancy slipped me a note. Your sister's in the lobby. Refuses to leave unless you talk to her. I kept presenting. Just sent a quiet message to security. Handle it. About 5 minutes later, Elizabeth was shown into the tiniest conference room we had, the one notorious for its stiff, back-breaking chairs. Once the board meeting wrapped, I didn't rush. I took my sweet time going over a stack of contracts before finally making my way downstairs to meet her. By then, she'd been left waiting for a solid 2 hours. Her flawless blowout had started to lose its bounce, and she held onto her Prada bag like it was armor. Seriously, ally, she snapped the second I walked in. You couldn't tell security I'm your sister? They knew exactly who you were, I said as I sat down across from her. That's exactly why they stuck to protocol. Her shoulders slumped a little. Mom's been crying. Dad hasn't been to the office in days. They feel like you turned your back on us. Turn my back? I raised an eyebrow. Because I made something of myself? Because I did it without anyone's help? Or because they can't claim the credit now? That's not what I meant. We're your family. We should have been part of this journey. Oh, like I was part of yours? I shot back. Those family dinners where you and Richard hogged the spotlight? Those charity events where Mom beamed while calling you her successful daughter and introduced me as Elizabeth, she's still figuring things out. Elizabeth winced at that. That's not fair. No, what's unfair is how you never asked. Never cared enough to see what I was building. You were too busy being proud of yourselves. And now, I gestured around the small room. Now that you finally see it, you want in? Richard wants to collaborate? Oh, Richard, I said, pulling out my tablet. I brought up his file and scrolled through. 3 failed ventures. 2 warnings from the SEC for shady trades. And a trust fund that's draining faster than his excuses. That Richard. She went pale. How do you even? I make it my business to know everything about anyone who tries to get involved with my company, including the fact that your dear Richard has been trashing me to investors for 2 years. Called my work amateur hour, if I recall. Patricia's designer bag slipped from her hands and hit the floor. He wouldn't. Oh, but he did. The audio clips are pretty convincing. I stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a company to run. Wait. She reached for my arm. What do you want? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Just don't shut us out. I looked down at her manicured hand on my blazer sleeve, the same blazer she laughed at just last night. I don't need anything from you, Patricia. That's the point. I built all of this on my own. No help from you. None from Mom or Dad. I didn't wait for anyone's approval, and I'm not about to start. But what about family? I gave a small, sad smile. Real family would have believed in me from the start, even without the billions. They would have asked me what I dreamed about instead of dismissing it. They would have seen who I really was, not just what they wanted me to be. Elizabeth let go. And now? Right then, my phone buzzed with another calendar alert. Now? Now I've got a meeting with the governor to discuss turning the city into a major tech hub. Feel free to let Mom and Dad know. I'm sure they'll suddenly become very proud. As I left her sitting in that cramped room, Nancy joined me in the hallway. Your parents are hosting another family meeting tonight, she said, glancing at her tablet. Your aunt's already talking to reporters, claiming she mentored you. I smirked. Let them talk. Let them spin whatever story they want. Success speaks for itself, but silence? Silence says even more. The elevator opened and there stood Karen, flanked by international investors. Ready to make some history? She asked. I adjusted my discounted blazer, funny how it was about to become a fashion statement in tomorrow's business section. Always, I said. Because here's the truth. The boldest breakthroughs often come from the folks nobody believed in. Behind me, I could hear Patricia's designer heels clicking their way out. The sound echoed like a memory, all those years of being ignored, judged, underestimated. But that girl they overlooked? She was long gone. I wasn't just the little sister anymore. I was the future. And the future belongs to the ones who build it from scratch. A month after that Forbes article turned everything upside down, I was back in my office, combing through the latest market updates. Neuroteca's stock had doubled. Industry insiders were calling our AI technology a game changer. And my carefully guarded privacy had vanished in a cloud of media buzz. Nancy appeared in the doorway. Your dad's downstairs. I didn't take my eyes off the screen. Same answer as yesterday. He's different this time. No flashy car. No fancy suit. He's wearing jeans. That made me pause. Anthony speak in denim? Out in public? He's been sitting in the lobby for 2 hours, Nancy added. Just watching people work. I pulled up the lobby feed. Sure enough, there he was, my father. He looked smaller in that casual getup, holding a worn leather briefcase I'd never seen before. Send him up. While I waited, I glanced at the framed headlines on my wall. Neurotech breaks new ground in quantum AI. Billion-dollar CEO rejects family's claim to her success. Elizabeth. Success doesn't ask for permission. That last one came from the interview where I finally spoke publicly about the family situation. The reporter had asked why I kept my rise a secret. My answer went viral. Success doesn't ask for permission, seek validation, or wait on family approval. It just needs vision and the guts to follow through. When Dad walked in, he was almost quiet, unrecognizable from the powerful executive I'd grown up with. His eyes moved slowly across the room, studying the algorithms on the whiteboard, the global tickers on the wall, and the skyline of a city he once thought he ran. "Your mother still sets a spot for you at dinner," he finally said. "Every Thursday. Just in case." I motioned to the chair across from me. He sat down across from me, carefully placing an old, scuffed briefcase on his lap like it was something sacred. "I've been thinking," he began, "about your fifth-grade science fair." Of all the things he could have said, that wasn't even on my radar. "You brought in this rough version of a neural network. Built it from scratch. Used it to forecast the weather. The other kids had exploding volcanoes and bean sprouts bending toward sunlight. You had algorithms." He let out a quiet, almost nostalgic chuckle. "You won first place, of course. But I wasn't there. Had a board meeting." "I remember," I said flatly. "What I don't remember," he went on, voice softening, "is ever asking you how it worked. Or why you were drawn to AI in the first place. Or what you hope to do with it all." He unbuckled the briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of documents. So I started digging. He laid the pages out across my desk, patents, research papers, early business plans. All mine. Some dating back a decade or more. "You filed your first patent at 19, he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Developed your first AI protocol at 22. Launched 3 startups under alias names before anyone even heard the word New Rock. And all that time, we thought you were just lost," I filled in. "Trying to find myself. Difficult," he admitted. Then he looked up, and for once, he really looked at me. "We got it wrong. I got it wrong." The silence between us was thick with everything we'd never said. Everything they'd never asked. "You know," he said after a while, "your mom's been learning to code. Basic stuff, but she says she wants to understand what you built. Patricia's been brushing up on AI ethics. Even Richard has started reaching out to my competitors. Using my name as leverage, I cut in." That made him wince. "I didn't know that." "There's a lot you didn't know. A lot you didn't bother to find out." He nodded, slowly. "Your mom wants to throw a dinner. A real one. Not like before." "You mean like the last time? When the whole family gathered to stage an intervention?" "No," he said quickly, shaking his head. "This would be different." He reached into the briefcase one last time and pulled out a photo, me at 10 years old, standing next to my science fair project. The neural network setup. A big ribbon stuck to the corner. I looked serious. "Certain. When did we stop seeing you?" he asked quietly. "When did we trade pride for criticism?" I stared at that photo for a long moment, remembering what it felt like back then. The thrill of creation. The disappointment when no one came. "You know," I said, "that model predicted weather patterns with 76% accuracy. Not bad for a 5th grader. Want to guess what New Rock's accuracy rate is now?" His eyes lit up, just a little. "Tell me." 99.997%. I swiveled my monitor toward him, showing off our latest performance metrics. "We're not just predicting the weather anymore. We're forecasting climate shifts, market behavior, demographic trends. We're giving governments a heads up before disasters strike. Helping businesses pivot before the storm hits. We're literally saving lives, Dad." For the first time, I saw it sink in, not just the success, not the fame, but the actual substance of what I'd built. "Walk me through it," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. "Help me understand." I hesitated, then stood and moved to the big whiteboard. "It all starts with a basic neural path," I said, uncapping a marker. "But from there, we bring in quantum processing." For the next hour, I walked my father through the very foundation of my life's work. He followed along, asked thoughtful questions, even challenged some of the logic. It was the first real conversation we'd had in years. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "There's something else I need to tell you," he said. "Bullet Global is in trouble. The old-school consulting model doesn't cut it anymore. Clients want AI. Predictive tools." "I'm aware," I said. "Your stock dropped 40% last quarter." He laughed, an honest, surprised laugh. "Of course you knew. You probably saw it coming before I did." Then he straightened a bit. "I'm not here for a bailout. Or for contacts. I'm here because I'm proud of you. Not for the money or the fame, but for the courage it took to build all this when none of us could even see it." I walked to the window and looked out over the city skyline, the place where I'd quietly built an empire while my own family looked the other way. "Let's hold the next family dinner here," I said slowly. "In this building. I'll give them a tour. Show them the truth. No more assumptions. Just facts." "They'd like that," he said. Then, with a touch of hope, "I'd like that." "One rule," I added, turning back. "Everyone comes on their own. No guests. Richard doesn't get an invite." He nodded. "Fair." Patricia's starting to see things clearly. His latest deal cost them a lot. "I know," I said. "I bought out the debt last week quietly through a shell company." His eyebrows shot up. "You did? Why?" "Because she's still my sister. And while she has to clean up her own mess, I won't let her go under." I sank back into my chair. Family's messy. Success doesn't magically fix that. It just gives you the power to set new boundaries. Dad got to his feet, grabbing his briefcase. "Thursday at 7? "Thursday at 7, I confirmed. "Tell Mom to wear sneakers. It's a long walk." At the door, he paused and turned to look at me one last time. "That quote from your article, the one about success not needing permission. I'm framing it. Hanging it in my office. It's time I started learning from you." After he left, Nancy came in with my updated schedule and a fresh cup of coffee. "Your mom's already called 3 times about Thursday," she said with a smile. "And Elizabeth sent over a bouquet." "Donate the flowers," I told her. "And clear my calendar for Thursday evening. Time to finally show them what I've been building all along." Later that night, still working under dim lights and city glow, I hung up one more headline on my wall. "Tech CEO redefines family business. Success is the best teacher." And right below it, I pinned that old photo from the science fair, me with big ideas and bigger dreams, long before anyone thought they'd mean anything. Because the hardest part of building something great isn't the work. It's helping people finally see you, not as who you were or who they hoped you'd be, but as who you truly are. And as I looked out over the city, its lights flickering in buildings powered by my vision, I smiled. Thursday was going to be interesting. But this time around, I wasn't the one with something to prove. That part of the story was already written. Now, it was their turn. The day of the family dinner rolled in, and for once, I didn't feel that tight, anxious knot in my stomach. Not because I expected apologies or emotional breakthroughs, but because I finally knew exactly who I was. And maybe even more importantly, I knew who they were. I put on the same black blazer. Not because I didn't own anything else, but because it had become my quiet statement. A kind of uniform, the one they used to laugh at. The one Forbes later dubbed tech's new power look. For me, it wasn't about fashion, it was about focus. It reminded me I didn't owe anyone an explanation. The family trickled in, one by one. Elizabeth was the first to show up. Alone. No Richard trailing behind. She was dressed plainly, no high-end labels, no flashy accessories. Her hair was tied back in a way that looked familiar. Like mine. "I read your white paper," she said as she walked in. "Which one?" "Nexus." I lifted an eyebrow. She offered a small, awkward smile. "Didn't get all of it, but I'm trying." That was progress. Mom followed, wearing a pair of sensible flats. Yes, actual flats, and holding a Tupperware container. "Homemade spanakopita," she said, like it was a peace offering. "Food as a truce." Classic Mom. Aunt Elizabeth showed up without her usual drama. No sweeping stories or subtle digs. Just a quiet nod and a low, "Proud of you, dear." For once, she didn't try to rewrite history and claim credit for my path. Dad came in last. He wore jeans again, paired this time with a relaxed blazer. He paused just outside the entrance, standing in front of the glass where my name was etched into the building. I watched him stare at it for a moment and smile. Then he stepped inside. Nancy ran the tour with her usual clockwork efficiency, walking them through labs, data centers, our R&D spaces. They actually paid attention. They asked questions. Sure, some didn't fully get what they were seeing, but none of them brushed it off. When we reached the big conference room, the one with the floor-to-ceiling city view, I gave a short rundown of Project Nexus. Elizabeth leaned in at one point, brows furrowed. Wait, this isn't just predictive AI. This is anticipatory behavior modeling. I blinked. You actually read the paper. Told you I was trying. Dinner was casual by design. No hired chef, no formal setup. Just good, honest Thai food from a local spot our team swore by during late-night work sessions. The conversation surprised me. It was relaxed, easy. Mom even asked Nancy about her background, her schooling, how she ended up working with me. Nancy, ever the professional, answered smoothly while keeping half an eye on me for any signs I wanted to shift the topic. After dessert, Elizabeth pulled out her phone. Mind if I take a picture? Just for me. Not posting it anywhere. I gave her a nod. Toward the end, Dad drifted over to the wall where my framed articles hung. His gaze landed on the one with my quote, "Success doesn't need permission." He turned to look at me. You were right. It never did. But maybe it does need protection. And I wasn't there to give you that. Not from doubt. Not from the pressure. Not from being dismissed. I see that now. I didn't say anything right away. I didn't need to. That moment said enough. Later, after everyone had left, Nancy found me sitting alone in the boardroom, staring out at the skyline. That actually went better than expected, she said, placing a small envelope on the table. I looked over. It did. Not perfect, but honest. And that's enough. I opened the envelope. Inside was the old science fair photo, cleaned up and reframed. Beneath it, engraved on a brass plate, were just 6 words. She saw the future when no one else did. I looked out the window again. The city lights flickered like lines of code, moving, adapting, alive. So was I. And maybe, just maybe, so was my family.